going.
All right, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Amen. Praise God. I'm doing well, I'm excited. Today, we are continuing with our study on John Maxwell's Everybody Communicates, Few Connect. I think that this has been extremely insightful, and I hope that you all are learning as much from it as I've had the opportunity to sharing with you all and going through this process. We are going to be going from chapter 4 tonight, talking about connecting always requires energy. Connecting always requires energy. And as I was kind of just going over it again, I thought to myself, man, yes. This is the kind of stuff that makes you think twice about leadership.
Yes.
Because you really begin to consider what kind of effort goes into connecting and what kind of energy is required and what you have to do beforehand. And it's so funny because so much of it's kind of like in the military. A lot of what we do before the battle, it seems like way too much. But it's designed so that by the time you do the battle, it's a lot easier. We say we want to train harder than we actually fight. And so we'll spend time planning and then rehearsing and then getting supplies and then refining the plan and then going over it. And all that, finally we get to the battlefield and it's like, that was it. Like, that was all. And what John, I think, is sharing with us and what we're going to talk about tonight is just the kind of effort that's required to actually be a good connector. How you have to be intentional about learning what people are there for. How you have to be intentional about offering value, intentional about communicating, intentional about listening, slowing down, taking your time. And all that requires a tremendous amount of energy. So I'm really excited about tonight. I'm really excited about you all's feedback. I hope everybody's excited. We're going to open up with a word of prayer, and then we're going to go ahead and get started, okay?
All right.
So let us pray. Father God, we just thank you for this day and this time. We thank you for just another opportunity, Lord God, to hear from heaven, to, Lord God, grow in our leadership skills, Lord God. We thank you for Brother Maxwell, God, and just the wisdom and insight you've given him. I thank you for the opportunity to be a facilitator of this conversation. God, I thank you for the experiences we've had, both with good leaders and with leaders that made us want more. And Father, as we learn from all of those experiences and how to be leaders ourselves, I pray, God, that you would just help us go to the next level, that we would be effective in the roles that you've allowed us to be assigned to, and God, that we would be courageous because we're confident in what we've learned here in this place. So thank you for those who are here, those who are making their way out, those who are unable to be here with us, but who may be watching this, God, may you give them strength, God, and encourage them, Lord God, to look in the mirror and to take that next step to true leadership. And we'll be careful to give you praise, glory, and honor for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. 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 Okay, so you can relax, just get comfortable. It's kind of funny. I'm sitting down when I'm about to talk to you about how much energy is required in order to be an efficient connector. Amen. Okay, so connecting always requires energy. Now, at the beginning of your notes you've got here, think of 3 communicators that you enjoy watching and listening to. What are some key things that they might have in common? So anybody can name somebody who they think is a really good communicator, somebody they really enjoy listening to. Mr. Justin. All right. Yes, there you go. I'll take it. All right. Some other people. Who do you like? T.D. Jakes. Okay. T.D. Jakes, he's good.
President Obama.
President Obama, okay. All right, President Obama, he clearly connected with a lot of people, right? Over half of our country, right? Enough for people to come out and vote for him. So definitely, and some of the things, what is it about those people that we like? What is it about them that we're like, man, they connect with us really well? What are some things that you would say, some attributes? All right, so somebody said T.D. Jakes. What do we like about T.D. Jakes?
How he approaches a situation.
Okay.
It's like he does it so calmly, and like he's just calm and relaxed. He's not, well, this is what you need to do, and he's not aggressive with his opinions or his thoughts or.
Okay. So he makes it feel real conversational.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of like, hey, this is a good idea, don't you think? And you're like, oh, no, yeah, I do. Okay, does anybody else get that same vibe, or somebody else gets something different from them?
Like they're relatable in what they say. Well, on T.D. Jakes, what he says is true.
Okay.
It's very relatable.
to you.
I agree with that.
Okay, so
And inspirational.
so relatable and inspirational. Will we call that knowing our audience? Do you think T.D. Jakes spends a lot of time thinking about the issues that his audience might have, and in the ways that his message is going to impact them? Because imagine if T.D. Jakes, like a lot of his, let's say he's at a Woman Thou Art Loose conference, right? T.D. Jakes is known for his Woman Thou Art Loose conference, right? And what if he was to get up there and just start talking about being a man? How hard it is to be a man, the struggle of being a man, like, right, immediately.
He would lose his audience.
Immediately, he would lose his audience, his credibility. So it's because he's aware of his audience that he's able to connect with them. And so many times, if we as communicators, leaders, speakers, when you're training, because we know all of this is entailed in leadership, right? We're understanding that when God puts us in a leadership position, and we're required then to train up our people, right? That I can't just be like, oh, I'm in charge, do what I say. Then I might have to do some training. I might have to be like, hey, we're a little short here, let's build this up. Hey, this is my vision where we need to get to. Let's develop some new muscles and new skills. So in order for us to do that, I have to know my audience. I have to know the strengths and the weaknesses of my audience. I have to know the background, kind of where they're coming from. All that stuff takes time, right? All that stuff takes work. All that stuff takes getting to know, to being intentional. And one of the things that kept just coming back to me as I was going through the book, just kind of reviewing, is the intentionality required for good communication. So he's talking about this week, connecting always requires energy. But what he's really talking about this whole thing is that in order for us to go from just communicating to actually connecting with people, I have to be intentional about every step along the way. Now this could be taken advantage of in a negative way if I was just to be like, I'm using this for bad, but the amount of effort that you're going to put into, you're going to use it for good. All right? Just because this is just way too much effort. In fact, generally speaking, probably if you're not going to be really caring about somebody, you're going to just be in a hurry. Like, hey, what's your name? Okay, yeah, good to meet you. All right, so this is what I need you to do. Okay? And I've learned absolutely nothing and not connected at all. And so I have to be intentional about it. You said inspirational. I think inspiration also goes along with why some people follow President Obama. We found his words to be inspiring, to stir us, to cause us to want to do something. And that's what the end effect of connecting is. Communicating, oh, here they go, talking again. I'm going to zone out. You know, how does this have anything to do with me? But the communicators that you enjoy watching and listening to, they evoke something inside of you. The books, if you like reading books, the authors that you like reading to, they evoke something inside of you. In some way you connected with them. You connected with the story. You found yourself enthralled with what was going on, and you was like, wow, I just want to, I need to turn the page. I need to see what's going on. Stop. I don't want to talk. Don't interrupt me. This is good. And the same thing in our communication, and the same thing in our connecting. Can we enthrall our listeners? Can we enrapture those who we're speaking to? We will not be able to do that if we're not intentional about knowing who we're working with and knowing what's going on with them. Okay, everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
People good with an understanding. So they don't use big words, but they don't use little baby words.
Right, exactly. So that's important too. Knowing your audience, knowing where they're coming from. I remember reading a book, and I had never even considered this, but the pastor was saying in his congregation, most of the people either had graduate degrees or doctorates or masters, he had on campus at a college kind of thing, and so it was kind of expected that he would use certain vocabulary words in there that he couldn't maybe use at a different place. And so it was just knowing the audience. So I think that's definitely spot on.
And then the whole intentionality piece, because like Noel Jones, he will use big words, but if you notice the big words he used that 99% of people don't know, he always explains that word. He never just puts that word out there, because his whole thing is, my intent is to educate my people, to bring them up their level of understanding words and comprehension of that thing. So he always uses big words in sermons. You ever heard? But right behind that word is the explanation of what it is.
Nice.
He'll use that word, the explanation comes, And people are holding their breath for the explanation because they ain't got the clue before. He knows that.
Right,
He knows
right.
that. So he's very intentional. He always comes with the explanation.
All right, good
It's
stuff.
pretty cool.
Good stuff. And I imagine that probably makes him a very good connector because now people are listening even more. Well, okay, what's that gonna mean? Oh, okay, yep, I got that. We're good to go now. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that on Monday. Somebody's gonna look at me and I'll be like, ha, go look that up. I'm not gonna give them the explanation. So yes, exactly. But I guarantee you, he spends a lot of time prepping his sermons and thinking about what am I gonna say and what am I gonna use here. And a lot of time with his speeches and any other way that he may be getting ready to communicate. And that's why we enjoy them. And all I want to just make sure that we're all aware of is as we accept our leadership mantle and we walk in that, we have to know this is going to be our requirement. This is a part of your lifestyle. You have to carve out time for this. One of the things that has been said before, when you say yes to something, that means you're saying no to something else. And when we're saying yes to doing the work of God and being the leaders that He's called us to and taking fully on the mantle that He's given us the opportunity to do, then that may mean saying no to some other things. And that's important to understand. It will require that, but that's also God's shaping process. That's His way of turning you into what He intends for you to be. So here he starts off with how I connected with people after a 25-year absence. Now in the book he tells the story about Hillham, Indiana, this rural country church that he had that was his first church that he pastored. And he had pastored the church and they moved into a new building and now it's 25 years later and they call him up and they say, hey, Brother Maxwell, Pastor Maxwell, will you come back? And he's like 2 churches later and he's leading some huge groups and he's like, I can hear it in their voice that they're kind of in shock and awe, you know. I mean, this was Little John, you know, Pastor John here, you know, is now, you know, guru, leader, Mr. Maxwell. And so he's like, oh no, I'd love to come back. I'm super excited, but it's been 25 years. You know, and he's got kids that are almost grown, and they've clearly got kids, and some of the people he was there with are now gone. How do you connect with that? His wife says to him, John, this is going to be real interesting, because all those people is the same place they was when you left 25 years ago, and you done become Mr. Big Shot. How are you going to connect with them? How are you going to connect? Now just take a minute and think about that. You don't even have to think about his situation per se. Just think about 25 years ago. Now for some of us, 25 years ago, we wouldn't be born, right? but for some of us, I don't want to be, I don't want to talk about that. All right, but 25 years ago, think about those people in that situation. Now imagine you are going back to that neighborhood, but 25 years older today. How are you going to connect with those people? Of course, assuming that you can find them, right? How are you going to connect with them? What is that conversation going to be like? Now, maybe if it's one-on-one, you're like, okay, that's cool. We'll catch up over the next 25 years. But if you've got to influence, if you've got to give them something, you've got to share with them, if they're expecting, wow, you know, the great you has returned to us, how do you connect with them?
I got a feeling though it would be a mixed group. You had the people, maybe a few that was there in 20, that knew you, and then you've got the young ones that have come along. So you've got to decide and sort of go in halfway between halfway. Connecting with our age as well as the young.
Right, okay.
You gotta discover too. You gotta find out about them. You know.
Right, and I think you begin to hit the nail on the head. We have to discover. I would need to clearly lay some groundwork. Right. It would be a bad business on my part to just show up and be like, all right, hey, I know y'all miss me. You know, all right, and I'm about to preach and then I'm gonna leave. That would be absolutely not connecting. I would fulfill probably their greatest fears, that I had just become somebody who was untouchable, unrelatable. Exactly. So what John does, what Mr. Maxwell does is, and this is our first point, number one, I search for memorabilia of our time together. I search for memorabilia of our time together. So So he says, and I don't know this because I'm not a pastor yet, so I wondered, you know, if pastor and elder can speak to the truth of this, but he said he goes through his files, he found the records of weddings and funerals, sermons and special events, the picture from when they first moved into the new building showing all 301 people standing in front of the church. He went back and he got all of that stuff. He searched for memorabilia of our time together. Now, would you all be able to find stuff like that?
We can buy old pictures, that's not all we can buy. We can buy old records, and we often look at those things in there actually, but, you know, that's about it.
Okay, okay. All right, so he searched for those pictures. Then number 2, I worked on remembering their names. I worked on remembering their names. Right now, you're saying to yourself, that is absolutely impossible. And so what he did was, he actually called back there to one of the deacons, and he says, hey, you know, have you all got a church registrar? When's the latest time? And so what he did was he got to Hillham, so he knew he was going to speak on Sunday. He came in on a Friday afternoon, and he met the guy. He said, bring your church registrar, which of course they had just digitally, so they had pictures to go with it. And he's like, bring the register, meet me outside of town. And he said for about 45 minutes he sat there and he just flipped through, looking at the names and putting it together with the face. Looking at the name. So then think about it, he had already been the pastor there for years. So for a lot of these faces, it was just realizing, okay, this is what you look like 25 years later, and just remembering the name. But he got there on a Friday afternoon for speaking on a Sunday morning and was intentional about it. So he worked on remembering their names. Then number 3, I tried to make them feel special. So in the story, he says, on Saturday night, he says, I want to have a dinner. He says, I'm going to host the dinner. He says, but only for the people who were there when I was there before. Only for the people who were there when I was there before. So now he's got them in this private room, right? And you can kind of think about Jesus. I just thought about this, but I think just Jesus kind of up in the upper room, and he's just, this is my final supper. I'm going to hang out with the people who I really like. Right? He's kind of just sitting around and he's connecting with them.
I guess he said it's a good way of connecting, and it makes them feel special almost.
Exactly.
To make them feel special.
And even more because he had that memorabilia. So then he just started sharing it. He was like, you know, brother so-and-so, you remember when I baptized you? And he's telling the story he's telling the story in the book, and he says, you know, it was his first time baptizing. He didn't know how he was supposed to do it. And he dumped the guy partly in the water, but then he let go. And the dude was as stiff as the board, and he started floating up the river, and then he grabbed a hold of him and pulled him back by the leg, but then he wasn't sure if he dunked him good enough, so he pushed him back down again. Now you're laughing at this story, and I was laughing at this story, but imagine how those people felt reliving those. You know, hey, here's the sermon I preached where you got saved, and here's the baptismal certificate, here's the Sunday school where you know, get whatever, and he's just, I mean, it just moves you literally. The years just fade away. But imagine the effort that you see the intentionality. He's making them feel special. He said they spent 3 hours together, just basically revisiting the past and closing the gap on 25 years in 3 hours, and laughing and crying together. He says, number 4, I made my visit personal for as many people as possible. So that's where he was giving the sermons out. That's where he was giving the paperwork, baptism certificates, everything. And then they took pictures together. Because, hey, you know, we're just reconnecting and growing. So we're going to have the before memorabilia, now we're going to have the pictures that show that this moment forever happened. I made an effort to spend extra time with the people. I made an effort to spend extra time with people. So now we're at Sunday morning. So does he show up just in time, come in the back door, and then go up on the lectern and preach? Of course not. Of course not. He shows up 2 hours before service starts to find, of course, that it's packed, right? Because, I mean, if you just had that tremendous moment, you calling all your friends. Don't miss service today. Brother John is back, and this is about to be amazing. And so when they showed up, when him and his wife showed up 2 hours before, it's packed out. And they just spent time just walking down the aisles, just talking to every person, shaking hands, spending time, shaking hands. How you doing? Hi, my name's John. Hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Oh my goodness, this is your granddaughter. Oh my goodness, this is your son. Oh my, can you see the conversation? Because it was just them the night before, and now it's, hey John, come, hey Pastor John, come see my, hey Pastor John, look at this. You remember little such and such and growing up, and now she got little such and such. Might have needed 4 hours. Just showed up. So they greeted every person, and then they stayed after you finished to make sure until everybody was the last to leave. So I made an effort to spend extra time with people. During his sermon, he made mistakes. So he tells in the story. During my sermon, I shared my mistakes. So mistakes is to fill in the blank there. He says in the story that they told him, listen, Pastor John, we want you to preach for 2 hours. He's like, we're gonna have one song, we're gonna take the offering, and then we just want you to preach for the next 2 hours. Like, you don't really want me to preach for 2 hours. And he was like, yes, we do. That's all we gonna do. One song, the offering, and then you gonna preach. And so while he could have came up there with some flowery sermon or something like that, and again, tried to blow the crowd away, he made it personal. He says in there that every pastor ought to come to Hillham so that they can learn how to be a pastor. And he just talks about all the mistakes that he made and all the lessons that he learned and all the impact that they had on his life. Because again, it would be real easy to make it about him, but when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about the value we give to others.
Right.
And so we have to point out where people have played such a huge role into our lives. And in this one opportunity, because let's be real, he's probably not going back to Hillham again.
Right.
And the people he comes back to, if it's another 25 years, definitely are probably not going to be there. So this is his one chance. This is one chance to inspire. There's one chance to say, and the kind of stuff you lead them with is, you impacted me in such a way that now I can impact others. And you begin to see the role. And you can imagine how they must have been feeling. Like if they had thought to themselves, man, I've been here for 25 years in Hillham, and when do we have to show for it? But then you realize that from your love and kindness and service birthed John Maxwell, who is now impacting others. Imagine how that makes you feel. But he's there, he shared his mistakes, and then he acknowledged them as a part of his success. He acknowledged them, and he, in fact, titled his message, 10 Lessons That I Learned at Hillham. And on the way home, his wife looked at him and said, you know what, John? You did it. You connected. You connected.
I bet that made him feel different.
Right, exactly. But think of all the energy that he put into that. Think of all the energy that it took. And we're not talking about the monetary, like he paid for the trip himself and everything. We're just talking, just the effort, the emotional investment. And this is what it takes. And think about how life impacting and life changing that is. Because good leadership is life impacting and life changing. Right? And you might not have somewhere where you're coming back from 25 years and you're in such an elevated position, everybody's like, oh my gosh, in awe of you. It may just be your first time being in charge of a group. But if you care, and if you are invested, if you can bring that kind of energy to everything that you do, to your conversations with your team, to your connection points, to the people who you're partnering with, people want to be a part of it.
Yeah, you get the feeling that, hey, I'm a part of you. I'm right here with you. I'm not Mr. John that's standing off way over there talking down to you.
Right.
You get this feeling. I mean, I'm sure he got this feeling, and people can feel the energy and feel that.
Exactly.
That he totally cares and is interested in it.
Exactly. And that's why it's so obvious when we're not. That's why it's so obvious when a leader isn't bringing that energy, when a leader isn't bringing that connection, when a leader isn't going to go ahead and say, hey, I'm with you, I'm not prepared, I didn't invest properly, I'm just going to wing it. You know, and you can tell sometimes when somebody's trying to wing it versus when they've spent time preparing and getting it in and you're bringing that energy and are committed. And I mean, you don't want to be a part of that. You don't want to be led by that. That's not somebody who you want to have as your leader. So when it comes to communication, when it comes to communication and connecting, we have 4 unpardonable sins. 4 unpardonable sins of being a communicator. So, number 1, unprepared. Unprepared. All right, number 2, uncommitted. Uncommitted. And as we're writing these down, I want you to be thinking about examples. I'm going to give you all a minute here to tell me, why you think these are some of the 4 unpardonable sins. So unprepared, uncommitted, uninteresting, uninteresting, and finally, uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. So the 4 unpardonable sins of a communicator is being unprepared, uncommitted, uninteresting, and uncomfortable. Okay, so anybody, I'll give open floor, anybody, take the one that kind of sticks out to you. Why do you think these are unpardonable sins?
I'm gonna take uncomfortable.
Okay, all right. Tell us why uncomfortable you think would be an unpardonable sin.
Because when you if you add something, or if you are trying to parlay something to somebody, you need to be prepared. You're supposed to be prepared.
Okay.
But if you're not prepared, you definitely don't be and twisting or turning or whatever. You are not going to connect with them when you are uncomfortable. A person can see it,
Okay.
and all. It's just, and you get a funny, I would get a funny vibe from somebody because that would be telling me uncomfortable,
I got it.
so I just wouldn't want to.
It kind of sounds like you sitting unprepared and uncomfortable then, right? Probably because they kind of go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah.
My comfort level. Go ahead, what were you going to say, Sister Janelle?
No, I was going to say they all go hand in hand because if something is not prepared, then I'm not going to have any interest in it. I'm not going to be like, oh, this is so boring, and this is going to make me uncomfortable because I'm like, okay, I wasted my time coming here,
Okay.
and the environment is uncomfortable. It's not interesting because you didn't put out all the effort, so there's no commitment, and yeah, they all go hand in hand. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? And now he has this little note here on the side that says 3 require effort. 3 require effort. What does that mean?
3 required effort.
3 require effort. Anybody got any thoughts on what that means?
I think you have to be intentional about doing them. You have to put effort into it. You have to make some effort to get prepared.
Right.
It takes some effort to get prepared. It takes
Right.
some effort to commit to your subject matter. You have to really spend some time researching it. It takes
Right.
effort. And then, of course, if you want it to be interesting, you don't want to get there and bore the people's lives.
Exactly.
They're
Exactly.
like, oh, why am I here?
Start walking out.
Right. Tempted to, right? You gotta have water breaks, bathroom breaks, everything.
And then I agree with Sister Janelle, so if you haven't done any of that, you're definitely uncomfortable.
Right. Right. Exactly. And those are actually the exact 3 that take effort. All right. To be prepared, to be committed, to be interesting, all those require extreme amounts of effort, extreme amounts of energy. And what we're going to see in the next chapter, chapter 5, Connecting is More Skilled and Natural Talent, is he talks about how much it takes in that preparation phase and how much it takes. So we're talking about intentionality and the energy, but the preparation phase, I mean, he talks about John actually like, okay, here's a humor point. Here's something I want to add to this. Here's a question. And in my book, I just have lots of little notes, things that I've underlined. I'm like, oh, is a note here. I got to ask this question here. Or, oh, this is here. This is a good point right here. Even the stuff that like kind of speaks to me when I'm like, okay, that's good. Do I do this? Kind of thing. And if I know I do it, then I'm definitely asking you all if you do it, kind of thing. But that takes some preparation. And it takes that commitment, and it takes trying to be interesting. So when you are all of those things, then you're going to be comfortable. You're going to be comfortable with your subject matter. You're going to be comfortable with what you're doing. And from a leadership perspective, when you're all of those things, your group is going to be comfortable following your vision. Your group is going to be comfortable following your vision. So if you're asking them to climb to the mountain, and you're like, hey guys, so check it out. I know nobody here has done any rock climbing before, and I know this is a really tall mountain, And I'm pretty sure that we can almost all of us make it up there. And let's do this. So Janelle's gonna go first, and then Mother Lucy, and I'm gonna be in the middle because I gotta tell y'all where to go. And yep, I think that's gonna work out just fine, guys. Everybody in, right? High five, let's go, team. No, not even.
Now that's something I think you have to study.
Exactly. But if I come and I say, okay, check it out. So I know nobody here has ever climbed a mountain. So I've got an instructor here, and they're going to put us through a 4-week mountain climbing course. And we're going to start here, and then we're going to work our way up. And then finally, at the end of those 4 weeks, for our final trip, we're all going together with me at the front and our instructor at the back, and all of you in the middle going to summit that mountain together.
That's more like it.
That's more like it, right? That's the plan, right?
feel comfortable.
Right. Like he might know what he's talking about. And he said he's gonna go first anyways. So if it don't work, I'm good. Right, exactly. So, you know, it's a big difference when it comes to leadership, where I'm gonna follow you or not. And a part of that is how committed am I to connecting with you, and how committed am I and prepared and energetic about what it is that I'm doing. So, connecting requires. So let's look at what it takes for 5 proactive ways to use energy for connecting. 5 proactive ways to use energy for connecting. Now, before we go into filling in the blank, let me just caveat here with this. Connecting is not limited to the type of personality you have. Okay, so you may be saying to yourself, I'm an extrovert, so of course it's easy. Or you may be saying to yourself, well, I'm an introvert, and this is a terrible idea to try to connect with anybody, okay? No, that's your introversion and extroversion do not determine your ability or your lack of ability to connect with people. But if energy is what's required, then it may require more energy if I'm normally introverted and less energy if I'm extroverted. Does that make sense? Okay, so just because I tend towards being introverted or tend towards being extroverted, I still have to bring energy. And even if I have a naturally outgoing personality, that won't cover me being unprepared. All right, that won't cover me being uncommitted. I still have to be intentional about knowing my subject, about having my information, about being ready to answer questions and to lead the group in my opportunity. Does that make sense? Okay, so connecting requires initiative. Number 1 is initiative. Go first. Go first. Now let me get somebody to read here at the top of page number 2, this little writing that we've got in here. Yes, ma'am. You go. It's okay. Go ahead.
I've had the privilege of speaking a few times to the employees of Walmart at the company's headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas. The first time I did so, I was taken on a tour of the facilities, and I was amazed to see signs everywhere highlighting the values and philosophy of the organization. On that first visit, after I was done speaking, I took a notebook and jotted down the messages contained on many of the signs. The one that left the greatest impression on me was the 10-foot rule. It said, from this day forward, I solemnly promise and declare that every time a customer comes within 10 feet of me, I will smile, look him in the eye, and greet him.
Okay, so this is it right there. This is it right there. That's good. Thank you. Think about that for a minute. First off, let's just go ahead and do this. Think about your own Walmart experiences.
Don't have
I know y'all need to get that out. I know that was like murder some people up. Like, what? This is what they rules? Nah, I'm taking it back. Right now, bad. Okay.
Some of
All right.
them, they're not being nice.
Now, think about how that would make you feel if that was implemented. If every time you were walking down the store and somebody was like, hi, welcome to Walmart. How are you doing? Is there anything I can help you with? Is everything going okay? You got everything? Okay. Just let me know if you need anything at all. He said once is enough. Okay. So in the book he says what would happen if Christians were to apply this to their life?
Oh, shoot.
No.
What would happen if we as Christians, right, whenever we came across somebody, anybody within 10 foot, we just greeted them? He's not talking about let's change their lives. let's try and get them to come to church. We just smiled, greeted them, and asked them, how are you doing? How's your day? Whether we know them, whether we don't know them, this is the first time meeting them, or the 25th time meeting them. Hi, how are you doing? I'm gonna look you in the eye and greet them. How's everything going? How would that just affect the world? How would that change the world? How would that impact?
You know,
Go ahead.
that's great that you said that because it's literally what we do anyway as leaders in Christian. I know it's a big thing for me personally here for the fellowship because I say, you know, don't let visitors go out the door without every single person greeting them. You know, greet them when somebody comes to Georgia. Come on, greet them. Let's get to know them. I don't like that we come in and then it's just me and my 3 and my 4 and we go. No, it's important. Everybody greet them. Everybody say hello. Everybody go and make them feel welcome and let them know we appreciate them coming. That's just important. It's because of my own personal experience in going places, like in going into a church and I think it's worse in the church. In Walmart, wish you would, but you don't. Oh well, I still gotta hurry and get this go.
Right.
But going into a church, I've been in a church where on more than one occasion, nobody even greeted me, said anything, sat through a whole Sunday school, and left because I'm not getting ready to worship here. You know, I'm not. It's just that impactful to me. I think, you want to be courteous and comfortable and feel welcomed and feel somebody wants you to be there.
Right. Right.
And that's definitely what they're saying when they tell somebody every time, look up and greet the person. They're saying make that person feel like you want them to be in Walmart.
Right. Right. And they're also saying do it first. Take the initiative. Be the first person to speak. Be the first person to greet. Be the first person. It says in the book, initiative is to any relationship what a lighted match is to a candle. It sparks it. It starts it. And a lighted candle obviously shines light and chases away the darkness. So initiative is important in relationships. Most of us would agree with that, right? But how many of us are willing to take that first step? And remember, as leaders, now let's just say you've just been dropped in front of a group and you're told, all right, this is your team. Now, there's of course I'm in charge and I'm just going to give you my vision and we're going to go from here. And then there's hey, let me get to know you. Let me build that relationship. Let me connect with you so that then my communication is effective. But that takes intentionality. Because they're sitting there like, I don't know how this is going to go. Not the first person who's been in charge of me, but let's see how this one's going to work. I'm going to sit right back here and see if they come over here and say something to me.
And I think when you're trying to connect with people, I think that's a great aspect of it is try to look them in the eye. Not look down or look up, but look at them. And sometimes when you're looking at a person, you can get a feel of where they are, what the.
And it'll tell you if I need to work more, or if we're good. I see that we're on the same page. I see that you look. So let me, and I don't have to call you out. I just have to say, let me go over this again, but let me tweak it and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because you might have gotten it the first time, but you might not have gotten it the first time, and you just might need to hear it again from a different angle. We all know that people listen and learn differently, right? So that means that when we're working on our connecting, we have to take that into consideration as well. All right, let's go ahead with the rest of this. Let me get a different reader, reading Malcolm Bain's quote and then the Jewish proverb quote.
If you wait until you can do anything for anybody, instead of something for somebody, you'll end up not doing anything for anybody. Malcolm Bain. And the wise does at once what the fool does at last.
All right, good stuff. So if you wait until you can do everything for everybody, instead of something for somebody, you'll end up not doing anything for anybody. And we know people like that, right? Oh, I'm going to get there. I just need to get a little more skills. I just need to get a little better prepared. Oh, I don't have everything yet. I don't have all the options. I was talking to a guy. And he was supposed to be working on a life plan. And we was talking about it. And I say to him, well, you got it? And he's like, well, see, the problem is every time I want to go and write down, I start thinking to myself, well, if I come in at 7:30, I'm not really effective. And then if I'm not really effective at 7:30, then when I ask to leave at 5:30, early, that's gonna be like considered a no-go because I came in at 7:30 and I wasn't effective, so I just don't write it down. And I'm like, the whole point of the exercise is for you to put something on paper and then we can tweak it together in order to come up with something that's good. But as long as you not put anything on paper, then we've never done that. And that's the same thing that he's saying here in this quote. If you wait till you got everything in order to help everybody, instead of doing something for somebody, which could turn into something for some more people, you're not going to accomplish anything. And so I think that that's something important that we have to be aware of. One of the things he says in here, he's talking about the need for energy to be expended, the initiative to be taken. And he says connection requires initiative. And I said in my notes, can we create these moments? As leaders, can we create moments where we have opportunities to display initiative? And I think
where we have opportunities, or
right.
where the people that we're leading have opportunities.
No, where we have opportunities.
Okay,
Can we create moments where we have the ability to create an initiative for connection? Now, one of the things that I thought about, kind of in answer to my own question, is just thinking about that initial meeting, right? So let's say, hey, you've been told you're going to be in charge of Vacation Bible School, right? That's a simple one. You're going to be in charge of Vacation Bible School. You're the one who's planning it. And you go and you put out the sign-up sheet. Hey, I'm looking for teachers. Hey, I'm looking for this, that, and the third, right? And you get like 8 people who sign up on your sign-up sheet. And you're like, yeah, I got eight people. It's about to be a good time. And y'all set the first meeting for, Tuesday night at 6 p.m. You're like, all right, Tuesday night at 6 p.m. is coming. Now, this is a perfect opportunity for you to set the initiative and connect. But how's that going to look? Are you just going to have everybody just slowly walk in, 6 p.m., 6:05, whenever, 5:55? You're just going to show up right beforehand, like, ooh, I'm glad I got here, you're rushing in late kind of thing. If we think about the story of all the things that he did in order to create that moment, what are the things that we can do to bring our energy to say, hey, this is how this group is going to go. This is how we're going to approach it. This is a big difference between running in at a few minutes beforehand or being there. Oh my goodness, hi, welcome, I'm so glad to see you. Listen, so you're Dr. Cook, right? Right, this is you, Dr. Cook? Okay, so listen, Dr. Cook, first off, let me just say, I'm super pumped about you being a part of this. I know you're going to bring some real wisdom and knowledge. What areas were you thinking about potentially being a part of in the Sunday school?
Yeah, that.
Okay, definitely. So let me go ahead and write that down. Now, we're going to be talking about a few different things, but I really want you to be thinking about how you can fit in this area and what are some things that you can share with the group. It's going to be real interactive going forward, okay?
Okay.
All right, so again, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you very much, and I know you're going to be a great help to the kids. Hi! Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. I didn't know if you were going to be able to make it, but I'm so glad that you made it out. Are you excited about this?
Very excited.
Of course you should be excited. You're about to have a great time in the Lord, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now let me ask you. I know you was listening, Dr. Cook was telling her stories and what she wants to do. What do you want to do?
I just want to be a part of it with the little people. I love the
Oh,
children.
the little people.
The little people.
Oh, I'm so glad. Because you said she wanted the big people. You said you want the little people.
Yes.
We are going to be winning.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to write you down for this. Now, I want you to make sure you tell everybody in the group about your ideas for the little people, okay? All right, good stuff. Ah, you made it! All right. Y'all got to get the point. Right, but I get to decide how much energy I bring to the group. Now you can feed off that energy. You can
Right.
feed
Yeah,
off what we're
sure.
doing. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this. This is Vacation Bible School, going to be the greatest ever. And then now you're telling people are like, why are you so excited, man? Listen, we had Vacation Bible School meeting yesterday. This all I can tell you is if your kids miss out, then all of a sudden you're like, where did all these people come from? Why are they so excited about Vacation Bible School? And when's your Vacation Bible School? I want to come to that. I want to be a part. If you've got this much energy off of a meeting, imagine what's going to actual event's going to be like and all the things that come into it. So I think that it is possible that we can create those moments. Now, the Jewish proverb says that the wise does at once what the fool does at last. Too often, he's saying here in the book, we wait for the perfect moment. We're sitting there waiting for this this moment when the stars align and the breeze is perfect and, you know, everything, like the budget is exactly, yes, the budget. Too often we wait for the perfect moment to initiate. The perfect moment never arrives. It just had to be the bearer of bad news. And initiating can feel uncomfortable. Initiating conversation can feel awkward. Offering to help means risking rejection, right? I'm offering you a hand, but you could slap it away just as much as you could take it. Giving to others can lead to misunderstanding. You won't feel ready or comfortable in those moments. But people who connect with others are the ones who go ahead and do what the rest of us don't quite get around to. You gotta do it. You gotta be intentional. You gotta take the initiative to go ahead and try to connect. Okay, number 2. Connecting requires clarity. Connecting requires clarity. Prepare. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about when we did our initial leadership 101 kind of thing was know yourself. Everybody remember that when we talked about the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your skills? Personal preparation means that I have to be intentional about my growth. I have to be intentional about my development. I have to be intentional about being the very best leader that I can possibly be. When I'm intentional about that, then I will know my strengths and my weaknesses. And I'm going to become comfortable with my own abilities. And then I'll work in my lane, which will help me to become even more comfortable with my own abilities. See, when I'm first starting off, I'm thinking to myself, I got to be like T.D. Jakes. Right? I gotta adapt his style. I gotta have his cadence. I gotta move like he moves. I gotta get the people to fall out like he does. But I've been doing it for a while. I realized I'm not T.D. Jakes. Okay. So I gotta just be me. And I have to be able to be true to myself in order to do that. When I'm true to myself, it allows me to have integrity. And integrity is number 1 here. Did I do my best? Integrity. At the end of the day, can I answer that question? Yes, I have given my very best. The next one is expectation. Did I please my sponsor? Expectation. People have an expectation of you as a leader. You should have an expectation of yourself. But in order for me to fulfill that expectation, I have to do preparation. I have to know my audience. I have to spend time knowing their fears. So even though I might open up with a whole bunch of excitement, the real work comes later afterwards when we're having the one-on-one conversation. How'd that go? What'd you think? What are some things that you could see done differently? What are some insight and some ways that we can grow from this going forward? This was a good opening meeting. I felt like we really achieved a few things, but I wanted to just know if I missed anything along the way. Can you give me some insight? Because I really want us to connect and be able to do the best thing for the kingdom and for the kids, right? That takes some extra. That's the after work, that preparation. When it comes to the expectations, and answering the expectations, the more I know about people, the better I'm going to be able to connect. And the more I know about them, then the better I'm going to be able to fulfill their expectations. So if I go back to my Vacation Bible School example, I know everybody who shows up is interested in Vacation Bible School, but I don't know what other ways people have done Vacation Bible School. So you may have done Vacation Bible School and all the verses was King James. You may have done Vacation Bible School and all the verses was the Message. That's 2 different Bibles right there that could produce issues. Well, I mean, I don't think the kids should have to learn all those words, and nobody uses the thee and the thou anymore. Well, I just don't think that's the sacred word of God. He can just twist it into some craziness in the Message. So understanding the people and understanding that allows us to be able to connect. But if you don't have clarity concerning your listeners, then your message will be muddy. So your message to some might come across clear, those who you knew what they were there for and were invested in, but the ones who you didn't, they're going to be like, what's that got to do with anything? And so then their expectations are going to be unfulfilled. This also goes with the next one, relevance. Relevance. Did I relate and understand the audience? Relevance. Did I understand and relate to the audience? It's that effort. It's just hands down that effort. I have to take the time. Generally, sometimes you'll get two types of communicators. You'll get the ones who make you feel real good, but don't leave you with nothing to take home, right? And then the ones who have a lot of knowledge, but don't make you feel good. Neither one of them is good. When I'm intentionally taking time to consider my message, I want to consider both how to make you feel good about it, but also how to make sure you leave home with something. It does me no good as a minister if I sit there and I speak to the people and I get them convicted and knowing that they need the Lord, but then never offer altar call. that would completely defeat the purpose, right? I need Jesus, but you can't find him here because the doors of the church ain't open. That would be absolutely terrible. But in some ways, we do that. We get people all hyped. Yeah, this is great, but we have no substance to it. Or we sit here with this huge plan and we're like, yeah, so we're going to go this step, we're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. I've got 58 steps to greatness, and I'm going to walk you through each one of the steps. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to be asleep by 5. Right? This is no motivation. I'm not excited. I'm really actually very tired. Let me record this. I will need this later. So it's important that we take the time professionally to prepare in order that I can be relevant. Can I add value? Value. Did I add value to people? So that's the next fill in the blank. Value. My message has to be valuable. And when I think about that, because we don't talk in that term as much of just adding value to people. But one of the things that I always used to tell my soldiers is every single one of y'all have the potential to be the next sergeant major of the Army. You have the potential to be a general. You have the potential to be a sergeant first class, a platoon sergeant, a first sergeant. I said, so it's incumbent upon me as I mentor, train, and develop you that I put inside of you things that enable you to hold the line for the next generation when you're in this leadership position. Because I value them. I value each and every one of their commitment. I value each and every one of the work. And so I wanted to see them succeed. And the same thing as leaders. We're required, if we're going to hold that mantle and sit in that role, to value our people. To take their time into consideration. To take their work and their efforts into consideration. Even when they fall short. Even when they fall short, and they will fall short, because we all fall short, it's still important that I value what you did.
I think that's very important, because if you don't let a person know they have value, or you treat them just like a piece of, I don't want to say, a chair maybe or something, they'll quickly leave you.
Right.
You won't have no.
Exactly. Exactly. And you, of course, wonder why you're just talking, but not connecting. And so that's important. The next one, application. Did I give people a game plan? Application. Did I give people a game plan? So again, and we kind of talked about that. We want to make sure that we have a plan to go along with our motivation. And then change. Did I make a difference? Connecting requires clarity. On John's connection checklist, did I provide integrity, expectation, relevance, value, application, and change? Did I make a difference? Okay, moving on. Number 3, connecting requires patience. Slow down. Slow down. He writes here in the book that everybody is in a hurry, but that prevents most of us from connecting with others effectively. If you want to connect with people, you need to slow down. We know that the society we are in, everybody's in a hurry. Everything's set up for you to be there. You can get fast food, slow food. If you bring your food home, you don't have to cook it because you can microwave it. You can get instant popcorn. Go fast. Listen, you don't have to watch commercials anymore. It's commercial-free TV. I can get 3 shows in an hour instead of 2. Like, everything. The man who goes alone can start the day, but he who travels with another must wait until the other is ready. Henry David Thoreau. I heard that there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to make it to the end of the day, go with somebody. And I think so many times, hey, we like, shit, if they get with me, they get with me. If they can catch me, they catch me. Good connectors don't always run the fastest, but they are able to take others with them. See, you're not going to necessarily be good with just that 1 hour meeting. I'm sorry, you're going to want to block that 1 hour meeting in your scheduler. You're like, hey, I got an hour. Get me while you can. And you'll communicate, but you won't connect. But when you go ahead and say, all right, we just build 3 hours in. Because I know we talkers, we might as well accept it. There's just, if I try to be in a hurry, I'm not, as long as I can keep us moving in the direction of a plan, but I gotta take time. They exhibit patience. These are connectors. They set aside their own agendas to include others. And listen, all those things require energy. All those things require energy.
Really.
Exactly. They all require energy, which is, of course, good that you know this, because number 4 tells us connecting requires selflessness. Give. Connecting requires selflessness. Give. So right at the end of that connecting requires patience section, he says, I've discovered over the years that anything really worthwhile in life takes time to build. When we begin to talk about leadership and impacting people's lives and efforts, we're talking about long-term, I'm giving myself. This is my commitment. This is nothing else than what Christ did for us. When he came down here, he was selfless, embodied in flesh, lived out in life. And in much the same way, that's the requirement on each and every one of us, to be selfless, to live this thing out.
And whenever you live that kind of lifestyle, and you live like that, it doesn't be hard. Once you have committed to that lifestyle, once you have committed that I'm going to put these people first, I'm going to put that person first. If they call and they have a need, or I was going to do this yesterday, I tell myself, I want to eat my lasagna that was left over. And I've been waiting all day and I was going to eat it, so I about 7 o'clock, so I finally went in there and heated up the lasagna, some corn on the star. And as soon as I did, as soon as that thing came out, the door knock came on the door. And all that, you ain't gonna heat up no food twice. so it was a sister across the hall from us, and I was like, oh man. I went in the bathroom one day. I was coming in my neighbor me talk to us. I'm like, oh. I was just hoping she was in there talking to him. By the time I came home from caffeination to the bathroom, she was gonna be gone. I was like, she just sat down. I'm like, oh man. I'm shooting Eva. I said, okay, stop it. It's okay. What's a little cold lasagna between
It'd be good for you, but oh man, yes, exactly. Selflessness, and that kind of selflessness requires real energy. That's givers, and when we're givers, people are connected to that. When people know that you're giving to them your time, your energy, your effort, your motivation, your I look at you and I see a glass half full. Every time I see a glass 3/4 full, I see, how do you see yourself? I see you like that, only better, that's the kind of thing. So here, he's got this long passage. He says, a guy's telling them, hey, John, this is why I think that you connect with people. I thought about why you're so easy to listen to. The idea especially intrigued me when I thought about the fact that it's true even when people know the stuff that you're going to say. And it definitely goes beyond the entertainment value of just good storytelling. So when you're listening to John, you realize he's got a lot of similar stories. They just have a lot of similar lessons. And so why do you keep listening to him? He says, I think it all comes down to a communicator who's primarily a giver instead of a taker. The human spirit senses and feeds on a giving spirit. The spirit is actually renewed by a teacher with a giving spirit. That's proven by the fact that when people hear what you've said many times, they are still filled. Your teaching is essentially giving, and people can receive all day from a giver while they tire quickly of a taker. Think about what Jesus taught. Half the time people didn't know what he was talking about. This is true. Right? You just think about it, the Bible says a lot of times when people was like, but they listened attentively. Jesus was giving, feeding them, not taking. It was at a spirit heart level. He wasn't just giving information. Now somebody else can read the next paragraph.
Here's how I think it works. If communications teach out the need, insecurity, ego, or even responsibility, they are not giving. The needy person wants praise, something the audience must give. The insecure person wants approval and acceptance, something the audience must give. The egotistical person wants to be lifted up, to be superior, and just a little bit better than everyone else, something the audience must give. Even the person motivated by responsibility wants to be recognized as the faithful worker, to be seen as responsible, something the audience must bestow upon them. Many communications teach in one of these taking modes all the time, and am not aware of it.
Okay, good stuff. So let's pause right there just for a minute. So he's talking about different communicators who teach from a taking perspective, and we can obviously apply that to leadership, but also in our ability to communicate in our taking. You can see how those would seem as common ways to communicate, but that are really bad, right? Like, I mean, you would think to yourself, hey, if I'm up here, surely I want people to tell me I did a good job, right? Hey, if I'm up here, surely I want people to be like, yes, that's what I'm talking about, you're awesome. But if I approach it from that mindset that, hey, you're gonna tell me I'm great by the time I'm done with this, yeah, you're gonna tell me, I'm gonna get I'm gonna feel great because of your response to me, then I'm a taker and not a giver. And so always as leaders, we have to be constantly evaluating ourselves and reevaluating ourselves and asking ourselves, am I giving or am I taking? All right. Let's keep going. Another reader, next paragraph.
Then there's the giver. This person teaches out of love, grace, gratitude, compassion, passion, and the overflow. These are all giving modes. In each of these modes of the heart, the audience doesn't have to give anything, only receive. The teaching then becomes a gift. It fills and renews.
Okay. And so we see the difference, right? We see the approach. And we can, as he talked about earlier, look at how Jesus taught it. Think about it. What did Jesus say that wasn't out of love? And that wasn't filled with grace? And that wasn't gratitude filled and compassionate and passionate and overflowing from his own time? Now, we have to consider, of course, how Jesus modeled this. How many times did he go off to get refilled in order that he might come and pour overflow into the people? And so that means that we have to do that same thing, which again means if I'm going to say yes to leadership, then I'm going to have to say no to something else. Because otherwise, I'm going to run out of anything to give if I haven't said yes to some time alone to restore myself, to get back to where I need to be, to spend time with the Father, to get re-energized. Does that kind of make sense? Everybody on the same page? Okay. All right, last paragraph.
This is you. That's why people can listen all day. As I have watched and learned from you, you teach 99% of the time from the giving modes. Only very rarely do you slip into the ego mode. And in those rare moments, I no longer feel like you are giving, you are taking. That can come off as I am special and a little better than you. Other than those very rare moments, I could listen to you all day.
All right. And so again, this is what a guy had wrote about why he felt like John was a really good communicator. And John says, I wouldn't put this in here except we had that little part at the end. So y'all would think this was self-serving. He says, I don't know if he feels like that guy. Like he says, I'm not sure if I'm that good, but he does strive to focus on the listeners and add value in any way he can. And again, we're going to look at that some more next week in terms of what that looks like in terms of steps and adding value and stuff like that. But what he's really saying is that you bring energy to give to people, that you're willing to work to connect. And another quote, somebody's talking about him and they say, John, we like you because you are our friend. And we can tell you're our friend because you won't stop until you see the light go off in our brains that says, we got it. And you ever know how you can, like, when you're talking to somebody and they just don't get it? And you just like, okay, they didn't get that way. Let me try to come back from this angle. They didn't get that way. Let me try to come back from this angle. I mean, and imagine now throw a language barrier in there and a culture barrier in there, and working through an interpreter
Oh,
and stuff.
yes.
How much energy it requires to stay the course until you see, oh man, there it is. And then just think about it as a membership, as a body, as a group, when you're trying to get people to see your vision. Right? Because God gave you the vision and you can see the mountaintop, but yet when I'm telling you about this, I see you doing this, and you're like, no. You're like, where's the door? Exit stage right immediately, right? Like oh my God, okay, so that angle didn't work. Let me come back at this angle. Let me come back at this angle. Let me come back at this angle. Let me say the vision again. Let me say the vision again. I really thought I said this before, but you're telling me you've never heard this, so let me say it again. Until you're sick and tired of hearing it, but because you're giving value, because you're giving to them, you just keep until everybody gets it, because you know the growth that's going to come when we're all on the same page. That's the leadership responsibility. And that is it.
Wow.
So, number 5, connecting requires stamina. Recharge. Connecting requires stamina, recharge. Lauren Wolf in the Bible on Leadership writes, leadership takes an almost bottomless supply of verbal energy. Working the phones, staying focused on your message, repeating the same mantra until you can't stand the sound of your own voice, and then repeating it some more, because just when you start to become bored witless with the message, it's probably starting to seep into the organization. Now, I have some firsthand experience with mantras. Earlier this year, we did a 2-month entrepreneurship challenge as a group that I was a part of. We had to do these workouts, and they were crazy workouts, and we were challenged to come up with a mantra. What's the mantra? You're supposed to say your mantra when you're doing the workout, say your mantra when it got hard, and then you would apply that to life. So when you was like, man, I'm tired and I don't want to work on my business because this is my business, but I'm tired and this is hard, I'd say my mantra. And just like I finished my workout, then I would finish whatever task it was for my business. So my mantra was climb the mountain. Climb the mountain. Just climb the mountain. Climb the mountain. Just climb the mountain. Climb the mountain. I got so sick of that phrase. Climb the mountain. So sick of that phrase. I didn't want to climb no mountains. I didn't want to live in no mountains. I don't want to fly over no mountains. You keep your mountains. So I understand when she says that you become sick of the sound of your own voice. But as a leader, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep giving. And so, unfortunately, what happens is that you will begin to drain. You will begin to become tired. You will begin to come and run out of stamina and energy. And he says if we're not careful, connecting with people on a continual basis can so deplete us of energy that we have few reserves, allowing us to do much of anything else. And of course, many of us have families and people who we have to go home to, and responsibilities and work and all that commitment. So when you're doing something extra, volunteer, or something that's not your primary focus, and even if it is your primary focus, you still have other things that you want to do, you will lose the desire to do those other things because you'll run out of energy. Because your stamina has been depleted. So we have to make time to make sure that we plug our energy leaks. We have to recognize and avoid what unnecessarily drains you of energy. Recognize and avoid what unnecessarily drains you of energy. Now, this can seem kind of counterintuitive, because as a leader, you think you should lead in every area, right? I should be the one up front. Listen, I'm in charge. I mean, that means I got to be the one to sweep, and I got to be the one to mop, and I got to be the one to put the kids down. I got to be the one to come up with the plan. I got to be the one to execute the plan. I got to be the one to make sure everybody else gets debriefed. I got to write the plan up. I got to do the budget. I got to shop for groceries. Right? You're the leader. You're talented. You're gifted. Wrong. Okay? Absolutely, unequivocally wrong. Recognize and avoid what unnecessarily drains you of energy. Just first off, it's okay. You can't do it all. Okay? So once we accept that and acknowledge it, and I play to my strengths, then I have to work in my strength zone. So John says, I'm a big believer in having myself and others work in their strength zones.
And one of the things I wrote here is, what is your strength zone? If you're really good at the fine details, that's just your bread and butter. You like to see the I's dotted and the T's crossed. You like to see every zero in the line, on the column. You will sit there and work. If that's your piece, hey, please come be with me, because that is not my piece. I need somebody who can do that. Hey. But if you can't stand big picture stuff, don't try to do big picture stuff. If you're not a fine detail person, don't try to do fine detail person. You're going to drain yourself of the energy necessary. If you're responsible for leading people or communicating with others, it's especially vital that you find ways to recharge. If you can carve out moments to do what energizes you, you will have reserves of energy that you can draw upon when you want to connect with others. So I recharge myself by, number one, loving life. I recharge myself by loving life. So oftentimes when we think about life, we think about, I got plenty of years to go, it is what it is. At a point, when you're young, maybe, right? And then when you get older, you're like, oh wow, man, I gotta live it, okay? So he tells a story here about Joe Theismann, who was a Washington Redskins quarterback, and he went to 2 Super Bowls back to back. And he says, in his first Super Bowl appearance, he was hyped. He was like, oh man, this is the Super Bowl. Here we go. Yes, woo, I done made it. I gotta win it. And he brought that energy and he brought that enthusiasm. He's the quarterback. He's and he wins the championship. And then he goes back. And now he's been there. He's kind of annoyed and he's irritated. He says, I was griping about the weather. I was griping about my shoes. I was griping about practice times. I was griping about everything. And as a result, his performance suffered and the team lost. Now, it probably wasn't just his fault. I mean, he's a quarterback, but it's a team sport. But nonetheless, as the quarterback, you're the leader. You're kind of at least the leader of the offensive side of the house. And the team lost. And so he says that sometimes he wears both the winner's ring and the loser's ring as an example of what he must do to be successful. The difference in these 2 rings, says Theismann, lies in applying oneself and not accepting anything but the best. And I thought to myself, the difference in 2 lives lies in applying oneself and not accepting anything but the best. And so when I really consider loving life, do I love it enough to apply myself to having the very best that I can? Or am I just accepting what comes my way? When I recharge myself and I commit myself to just living life and to loving it and loving every opportunity that presents itself, even the bad ones, because I know that the bad ones are helping me grow, especially from a Christian perspective. We know, God says already, we've been talking about this like for the last month, all things work together, right? And that he has a purpose and a plan. And he ordained us and foreknew us and preordained us and justified us and called us and gave us everything we needed to be successful, good or bad. It's all part of what he needs for us to get to heaven. Why, how can I not love life? How can I ever be just like, And so from that, oh man, I'm so grateful. I embrace my children, I embrace my kids, I embrace the arguments, I embrace whatever comes my way. Gives me energy to give back. Constantly recharging my battery. Loving what I do. I recharge myself by loving what I do. If you're accepting this leadership mantle, if you're accepting this responsibility, if you're taking on that mantle, love it. Love what you do. There's something that God's put inside of you, something that makes your heart beat. Something that is a rhythm that's right in rhythm with the Father's desires. Love what you do. Embrace that. All right, so he says he recharges himself by spending time with his wife. You can put spending time with your spouse, spending time with your family, spending time with those closest to you, people who pour into you, people who help you feel better, people who bring you to that next level. Number 4, handing off draining work. Just hand it off. Just hand it off to somebody. Maybe it's your partner. Just hand it off. Well, one of the things me and my wife talk about a lot is just roles. And how I say, man, we don't have roles. I wash dishes. I cook. She's not a big fan of it. She's not a big fan of the cook thing. She can cook, don't get me wrong, but when we first married, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna cook. She was like, okay. Hey, we was good to go. If that's not your thing, man, hand that thing off. Hand off the draining work. Number 5, friendships. Friendships. I remember growing up, my father told me, son, you're not gonna have a lot of friends. I didn't realize the wisdom in that statement. Having lived just a little bit, I've come to realize that the friendships I do have, and them things is right. And I'm so glad I don't have a bunch of them because things can also be draining. So I'm glad for what I do have, and I appreciate the fact that I don't have a lot. Number 6, being alone. We all need time alone. And that is harder than it seems, because for many of us, our cell phones and our social media devices have just become a natural extension, but you're not alone if it's you and your phone. That's going to become my new thing, by the way. I'm literally just going to trademark that right now. You're not alone if it's you and your phone. Y'all put that, there's a suggestion beside that right there. Because there's no way. There's no way that ding, bzz, ding, but you know your vibration. Oh no, this is a Facebook message. It's on my watch, it's my wrist. I tell myself this for telling time. No, it's not. It's to keep me. Ding, ding, ding. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Oh no, I got worried about that one. I do it so smooth sometimes. I'll be talking to somebody about joining the army and then like I feel it on my wrist, and I'll just be like, "Oh, so how do you feel it right now?" It's so terrible. It's so terrible. It's so smooth. I don't even think about it. I instantly know. I got about 3 seconds while it's gonna flash. I need to just ask them a question, flip my wrist, got a perfect angle. I'd be mad if you don't flip right either. I'd be like, yes, that's so true. Okay, got it. I'm just telling you like it is. Being,
I don't have to worry about that.
and you are not missing anything. Oh man. Okay. Number 7, exercise. You charge yourself through exercise. I know it might not seem like it's a great thing, like, oh, I'll be so tired after I exercise, but you will feel better. It's scientifically proven. It releases endorphins in your body. Endorphins make you feel good, it puts you in a good mood. Right? Exercise. And then number 8, prayer meditation. Prayer meditation. We talked about how Jesus connected by going away. Each of us should definitely model that. Jesus was always in front of the people. And we kind of talked about him in our Leadership 101 Intro to Leadership piece as to how he was, truly the leadership master. He showed that and lived it and displayed it. And what he displayed on a regular basis was energy. Energy in the crowd. Connecting. Working. Ministering. Sharing. Passion. Connection. Compassion. Giving value back. Servant leadership. Consistently, he lived that thing out, and he recharged himself on a regular. He sent the crowds away, and he went. He sent the disciples to the other side, and he went. Big moment, go in the mountains. He routinely went away. Hugest moment of my life, the cross. Let me go away to pray. So why do we think that we can just do it on our own? Key concepts. The larger the group, the more energy that's required to connect. When he went to save the world, he went alone. Question, what do I need to do to increase my energy to connect more effectively? And how can I do that? Leadership, right?
Yes.
Energy, right? It takes something. But, as Elder so eloquently put it earlier, when you make that a part of what it is you do on a regular basis, when you are intentional, and that's what I talked about kind of at the beginning, the intentionality of energy. It's what we saw in his story, intentionally working to close a 25-year gap. When you are intentional, when you are energetic, your connection goes up 10, 20, 100-fold. Because people want to be around you. They want to go where you're trying to go. Man, I would never have even remotely thought about climbing that mountain, but oh my goodness, this plane you just laid out and the energy you just brought has got me about to go out and buy some belay equipment and practice tying a Swiss seat in my mirror. I am excited. If you can bring that energy. if you can bring that motivation. I gave a speech to a group. It wasn't even really a speech. I was teaching the class, and afterwards the guy comes up and he says to me, we call it prospecting when we go out looking for people to join the Army. And afterwards the guy comes out to me and he says, Sergeant Lloyd, he's like, darn you and your motivational speeches. It wasn't a speech, it was a class. He's like, darn you and your motivational speeches. You gotta be one to go prospect right now. It's a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. We got like an hour and a half drive in traffic headed back. He's like, man, I just wanna go ask somebody to join the Army right now. I laughed. I said, hey, Sergeant, bring that on Monday. I was like, just bring that on Monday. We got to bring that level of energy. That's that commitment. That's our responsibility as leaders. And when you give that, when you're pouring that into people, when you're giving them, you think to yourself, man, that's going to drain me. I'm going to be tired. I'm not going to be able to make it. They will carry you up the mountain. They will carry you up the mountain if you will pour into them first. All right. Any last thoughts? Final thoughts from the group? Okay. Too easy. Next week, we're going to be looking at connecting is more skill than natural talent. Connecting is more skill than natural talent. So for those of you who are sitting there thinking to yourself, man, that's never going to be me. Mr. Justin just got it naturally. Man, whatever. Haha. Surprise. Skills can be developed. We're going to start developing ours. Connecting is more skill than natural talent. So we're going to get intentional about some specific strategies that we can apply. Thank you all for being here tonight. Wonderful, awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause. All right, we are better because we are together. And we're going to close out with a word. All right. Dear Father, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for Brother Maxwell and just this idea that connecting is how we communicate effectively. And by giving value, God, to others, we are able to connect and we're able to lead and we're able to grow to the next level, Lord. We thank you for your son, Jesus, and for the example of what good leadership looks like. And we thank you that we have that in our Bible and we know that if he could do it, we can too. So God, I pray that everything that was spoken here tonight will be sealed in our hearts. Every lesson, Lord God, that was learned here tonight, we will apply it to ourselves. I thank you for holding up a mirror to us as leaders, that we would see where we may are falling short, God, and that you have given us the tools to be able to become better. So, Lord, we just pray for safe traveling mercies, for opportunities to use these skills, Lord God, all this week and all next week until we're back together again. And God, that people would begin to see the change and be like, wow, that's different. How do I come in? They'll come out and get some leadership training as well. So we thank you for it all, God. This time in this place. Give us safe traveling mercies as we leave this place, but not your sight, and bring us back again safely together tomorrow night. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.